Have you ever baked a cake in your Instant Pot? Today I'm going to show you how I am going to attempt to bake a cake in my Instant Pot. It's not the first time I've done it, but it is only the second. My third video on this channel, I just threw on the camera to show myself trying out a cake I had made in my Instant Pot, but I didn't show how I made it or anything like that. I just showed myself trying it. And in that video, I thought it was way too moist, which it was. It was like a very, very, very moist cake, but not in a good moist way. It was like kind of wet moist. So I made what I think are the right changes, although I didn't write that recipe down. Pretty sure I know what I needed to change. And so I am going to try that out and make a cake in the Instant Pot. Let's quickly go over the ingredients. I have 1.5 cups of almond flour, a 1/4 cup of coconut flour, which will help absorb some of that moisture that's going to be in the cake. I've got a 1/4 cup of honey. That will be a teaspoon of vanilla. I've got a teaspoon of lemon juice. You could also use apple cider vinegar instead of lemon juice. I have got 3 tablespoons of melted butter. You could also use coconut oil if you like. I've got 2 ripe bananas, 2 eggs, teaspoon of baking soda, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and that is unsalted butter I'm using here. I'm starting with my wet ingredients. So I'm not going to pre-mash the banana because it was very, very ripe. But if your banana is not quite as ripe as that, you could mash it up a little bit first. But we're going to use an electric mixer, so that should take care of it. There's 1 egg, 2nd egg, my 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract, the melted butter. Make sure it's not super hot if you're going to pour it over your eggs, and my 1/4 cup of honey. Then my lemon juice. And now I have my electric mixer, so I'm going to mix this. All right, I mixed that for about 2 minutes. That puts some air in there, as you can see the bubbles. So now we're going to go for our dry ingredients. I've got the salt and the baking soda, my coconut flour. I'm just going to mix these real quick. I just wanted those a little more combined because I'm going to put in the almond flour a little bit more slowly. I'm not going to just dump it in. So I'm going to have this going at low, and then we're going to slowly put in our almond flour. So I'm just going to scrape this down and then combine it a little bit more. I have a little mini bundt pan that is for the Instant Pot that I thought I was going to use, but there's a little bit too much batter for that, so I'm going to use my slightly bigger springform pan. So I lined the bottom with some aluminum foil, so in case it leaks. I greased my pan with some coconut oil. You could use butter, or if you have something else you like to use to grease a cake pan, you could do that. Just make sure it's greased enough that it's going to not stick to it. And then so I'm going to put my batter in here. Like I said, it's thicker batter than normal cake, but so I'm going to see it's probably be a little denser. It's going to be kind of halfway between a cake and a banana bread. Get this in here, and then I'm just going to spread it out. So this is about halfway full. And so the next steps are that we need to cover this. Well, I realized I had a little camera malfunction when I was showing how I covered my cake. So I'm just going to show you how I did it with the empty pan, since it's all out of the pan now and cooked and done. But I will show you what I did. So what I like to do when I'm covering something that I'm going to cook in the Instant Pot that's going to touch, this is not even going to touch the food, but I still like to put the parchment paper over in case, you know, depending how much it's going to rise, and then I will put my aluminum foil over the top of that. So there's a kind of a double layer there. I don't have just the aluminum foil. That's just how I like to do it. You can just use aluminum foil if you like, but that is a very simple way. It doesn't have to be very tight. It just needs to cover it. And that's it. I've got 1 cup of water in my Instant Pot along with the trivet. So then I'm just going to go ahead and put my cake in here. This pan fits nicely in my Instant Pot. It's a 7-inch springform pan. And your lid, make sure you got the sealing ring there. I've only ever forgotten to put my sealing ring on one time, but I have to be making broth. Let's just say that wasn't good. And make sure your vent is set to pressure. My Instant Pot does have a cake setting, so I'm going to use that, but if you don't, you're going to want to just do it for 35 to 40 minutes under regular pressure. So cake, and then it's just going to start. So mine is set for 40 minutes, so I'm going to leave it at that. This has been going for 4 minutes. I didn't quite hear it beep when it came to pressure, but I did check my timer and subtract the appropriate amount of time. So it took a little over 5 minutes to come to pressure, so not bad. And now it's just gonna cook. What the big difference is in this cake is that when you're baking a cake, of course, you're heating it with hot air in the oven. With the Instant Pot, you're heating it, but it's got a lot of steam. So it's a steamed cake, which is a huge difference in texture. So one of the reasons I wanted to use the Instant Pot then, just to try it, because it's of course a curiosity to cook a cake in an Instant Pot with the pressure and the steam. But the other thing is it's super hot outside. I don't want to turn the oven on, but I wanted to use my ripe bananas up, and then banana cake sounded kind of good. So that's why I'm doing this right now. So we're gonna check it out when it's done. This finished and has been naturally releasing for about 20 minutes, a little over 20 minutes here. You only really need about 10 to 15, but I got to doing something else. I'm going to do the quick release here. And there was pretty much nothing left. So we're ready to take the cake out of the Instant Pot. I'm gonna take this out of the Instant Pot. It's still pretty hot, so I'm gonna use my little grabbers here to get this out. Alright, let's take our cover off. There we go. There we have our cake. So that's a little bit stuck there, just to the pan. Okay, I just want to see if we can tell how done it is. So it's pretty firm on top. I'm just going to use a toothpick to make sure it's done in the middle. So toothpick is clean, so it's done. I'm going to let it cool for about 10 minutes or so before I take it out of the pan to cool the rest of the way. This is cooled off, so I'm going to go ahead and remove the foil from the bottom, and then I will take the outer ring off. And that came off very easily, didn't pull any cake off there. And now I just need to get it flipped over so I can take the bottom off. To do this, I'm just putting a plate over it, and then I'm just going to flip it over because I want to make sure that air gets to it on the rack. So I just need to get this bottom plate off. I'm just going to use a knife to lift this up, and it's not sticking too bad. You can kind of see in there. And I'm just going to pull that off, and pretty good. It didn't pull big chunks of the cake away, just that little crumb there. So we're good. I'm just going to get this flipped back over so I can cool it. To get this flipped back over onto the rack, I'm going to put the rack upside down on the cake and then just flip it. So that way we get air to both sides of the cake as it cools the rest of the way. Pull the plate away, and there we have it. So I'm just going to let it cool down so we can frost it. I've got my cake cooled, so we're going to make the frosting. In this bowl, I have 2 tablespoons of butter that is room temperature, so it is soft enough that it will beat up nicely. And then I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of cashew butter, which is also at room temperature. I get cashew butter that is 100% cashew. That's why it's so nice and light. That is what I like to use for this frosting. But you can use other types of cashew butter. Sometimes you can find a cashew almond mix if you're not making it yourself. You can use other kinds of nut butter like almond or peanut butter if you want a peanut butter frosting. That'd probably be good with banana cake. But I like this cashew butter. And then I have just a 1/4 cup of honey. This is a slightly different honey than I use in the cake. It's a little more expensive, so I don't like to bake with it. but it makes a really nice frosting. It's nice and got a nice rich flavor. As you can see, it's a little thicker, but you can use any kind of honey. I just like to use this a little more sparingly. And 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. That's pure vanilla extract. The good thing about this frosting is that you could add different flavors to it if you have different extracts, or you could put lemon in here. Anything you want. It's very versatile, but I like this cashew butter vanilla frosting, so I'm going to go basic for this. And you can find this recipe in my cookbook, Don't Skip Dessert Volume 2. That's where I have it, and that's where I first tried it. But I love it. It's my favorite frosting. And now I'm just going to beat this until it gets to the consistency I would like it to be for the cake. All right, so I did that for a couple of minutes so I could get kind of a nice light texture to it, which I did. It's nice frosting texture. So we're going to go ahead and frost the cake now. All right, let's get the frosting on. I don't know if it'll be enough to go down the sides. I actually don't usually frost like the whole entire cake. I always make enough for like the top. So we'll see what we got here. It might be enough. So this frosting has a nice vanilla sweet flavor, but not too sweet. It's not like that super sweet flavor that a lot of frosting is, because there's no sugar and it's just honey. And the honey and butter cream together very well. I call this my buttercream frosting because it has that flavor, and it doesn't taste like cashew. That's why I like to use cashew butter. It just takes on the flavor of the vanilla and the honey and the butter, and it's really good. I am not a cake frosting expert here. All right, go down the sides a little. This is going to be rustic. All right, I'll just show you. I did manage to get it pretty much frosted all the way around, and you can smooth it out a little nicer than I did if you'd like. But once I had the camera out of the way, I was able to get in there and get it frosted. So that was enough frosting to frost this whole cake. to frost this whole cake all the way around. All right, let's slice it so that we can try some. That was not a great slice down the middle, but oh well. Sometimes it's hard to do these things like on the camera. I never get it quite right. All right, here we go. So, all right, so let's see if we can see. Well, I'll just get onto the plate. So here we have the cake. So it's a little bit of a denser cake. Like I said, it's kind of a cross between a banana bread and a banana cake. And I like the way it really held together. It's not crumbling apart or falling apart. So let's try it. That's the most important part. All right, let's see how it tastes. That is really good. It tastes like a banana cake. It's actually not too moist. Like the one all those years ago that I said, oh, it's too moist. I found the right balance. That one didn't have any coconut flour in it. And I think that's the big secret here. So it's kind of a dense cake. It's not a light, fluffy cake, but the flavor is really good. Those bananas were very flavorful in there with just the two. They were very ripe, but just the right amount of sweetness, because you don't want the cake to be too sweet because the frosting is pretty sweet. I do recommend using the frosting with this, just the right balance of flavors. Just kind of the frosting just complements the cake so well. So I definitely recommend using the frosting with the cake. Just came out really good. I'm so happy with it. So have you baked or made a cake in your Instant Pot? This is the only second time I've done it in all this time, but it was really good.